This story is titled, "My Brother Was Cheating on His Wife with a Woman Online, but we found out he was actually talking to a 50-year-old man named Frank. And now we can't stop laughing." My name is Chris. I am 34 years old, and I have always tried to be a good older brother to my younger brother, Mark, who is 30. When we were growing up, we didn't have our father around. He abandoned us before I was 1 year old. So it was just our mom, Mark, and me. My mom worked tirelessly to support us, but the absence of a father figure meant that I had to fill that role, even though I didn't have anyone to fill that role for me. But I managed. I taught Mark almost everything he knows about how to be a man. I showed him how to tie a tie, how to speak with respect, and, most importantly, how to avoid making stupid decisions that could ruin his life. Despite all that, Mark has always been a little naive and gullible. He's a good guy deep down, but sometimes his lack of common sense makes me question how he's made it this far. That being said, he did manage to marry an amazing woman. Lisa, his wife of 9 years, has it all. She's smart, fun, beautiful, and fiercely loyal. She has always been good to Mark. Over the years, she and I have become close. I see her as part of the family, and she knows that I support Mark as much as I always have. I've always told her that if she ever suspected Mark was doing something wrong, especially cheating on her, she should come to me. Lisa did just that. She came to me, visibly upset, and told me that she suspected Mark was cheating on her. At first, I couldn't believe it. He's my brother after all. Sure, Mark is not the brightest, but throwing away a marriage with someone like Lisa for an affair would be a new level of stupidity, even for him. I told Lisa I would listen to her. She explained why she had her suspicions. Mark had been acting weird, guarding his phone like it was nuclear launch codes, staying late at work without a good explanation, and being distant in general. She said her intuition was telling her that something wasn't right. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I told her I would look into it. After all, I had promised her that if Mark ever did something so stupid, I would step in and handle it. I told her that I would investigate and try to figure out what was going on. I started small, trying to notice anything out of the ordinary. I casually asked Mark how everything was going at work and if he and Lisa were okay. He brushed it off, saying everything was fine. I checked his social media, looking for messages or posts that seemed strange, but everything appeared normal. For a moment, I thought Lisa was overreacting. Then, she suggested I check Mark's work laptop. She said he had been spending a lot of time on it lately, and she had a feeling there might be answers there. Here's the thing, I'm the technician in the family. I set up Mark's laptop, solved his tech problems, and even helped him install security software. So, I had easy access. I told Mark I needed his laptop to update some software, and he handed it to me without any doubt or hesitation. When I started going through his files, emails, and messages, I found something I wish I hadn't. Mark was cheating on Lisa, or at least he thought he was. There were messages, photos, and videos from someone he had been chatting with online. But here comes the crazy part. The woman he was talking to looked like a supermodel. I mean, she was stunning. Her photos looked professional, the kind you'd see on a celebrity's Instagram. Immediately, I knew something wasn't adding up. Mark isn't exactly the most charming guy, and the idea that someone like that would be interested in him was beyond ridiculous. So I decided to investigate. I did a reverse image search on one of the photos she had sent him. Sure enough, it belonged to a famous model with 11 million followers and a boyfriend who is also a public figure. At this point, I realized that someone was setting Mark up. But the big question was, who? I continued digging, reviewing the history of the fake profile. Eventually, I uncovered the truth. The person behind the messages was a 50-year-old man named Frank. His real identity was linked to an old Facebook account he had failed to properly delete. Frank had been running multiple fake profiles to scam people like Mark. I couldn't believe it. My stupid brother was cheating on his wife with someone he thought was a supermodel. But in reality, he had been talking to a middle-aged man. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or just give Mark a good slap. Part of me wanted to let him face the full weight of his own stupidity. But then I thought about Lisa. She had trusted me to look into this. No matter how ridiculous the situation was, the fact remained. Mark had betrayed her trust. Now, I'm stuck figuring out how to handle this. Do I sit Lisa down and explain everything seriously, Or do I highlight the absurdity of the situation to soften the blow? Either way, this is going to be a disaster. I'm also wondering if I should confront Mark first and give him a chance to confess, or if I should go straight to Lisa and tell her everything. One thing is certain, Mark is about to learn a hard lesson about trust, stupidity, and the dangers of the internet. Update 1. After discovering the truth behind Mark's so-called romance, I spent a day trying to decide my next move. A part of me wanted to grab him by the throat and make him come to his senses, but I couldn't let my frustration cloud my judgment. I had to think about Lisa, who deserved honesty above all else. No matter how stupid Mark's actions were, this wasn't just a funny story. If it weren't for the fact that Mark had been tricked, he would probably be cheating on Lisa with another woman. Well, in part, he was already cheating on her emotionally. So I decided to tell Lisa. I couldn't let this stay buried any longer. Mark wasn't just flirting online, he was crossing a line that could destroy everything they had built together. She needed to know the truth, even if it was going to hurt her. When I called Lisa to come over, I knew she was expecting the worst. And although this situation wasn't technically the worst, I still wasn't about to give her good news. She arrived that same afternoon, and I didn't waste time getting to the point. I explained everything I had discovered, the messages, the photos, the fake supermodel, and finally, the real person behind it all, a 50-year-old man named Frank. For a few seconds, Lisa didn't react. She just stood there, staring at me as if I had spoken to her in another language. Then, suddenly, she started laughing. It wasn't a nervous giggle, but a complete and uncontrollable fit of laughter. At first, I didn't know how to respond. Here I was, trying to deliver this bombshell as delicately as possible, and Lisa was practically crying with laughter. But I couldn't blame her. The situation was so absurd that even I had a hard time taking it seriously at first. When she finally managed to calm down, Lisa admitted that, although she was upset and hurt, she couldn't deny how funny it was. The fact that Mark thought he was having a grand fling with a model, only to be scammed by a middle-aged man, was almost too ridiculous to process. But beneath the laughter, Lisa's pain was evident. She wasn't just upset by the betrayal, she felt humiliated. Mark hadn't only broken her trust, he had done it in such a ridiculous way that it seemed like a mockery of their marriage. Lisa asked me for more details, and I told her everything I knew. I showed her the messages and explained how I traced the photos back to the real model. Even told her about Frank. She listened, but she also shook her head from side to side as if to say, "This can't be true." I could tell she was trying to make light of it to protect herself. But no amount of humor could erase the damage done. But deep down, this hurt her more than she let on. After going over everything, Lisa made it clear that she wasn't going to confront Mark right away. She wanted to observe him for a while, see if he was still texting her, and decide how to handle the situation. She wasn't ready to forgive him, but she didn't want to make hasty decisions. Lisa had an idea that, honestly, I thought was great. She wanted to confront Mark in front of the whole family, not only with me and her, but with everyone. She thought that if he was dumb enough to fall for a fake profile, he deserved to be embarrassed a little. At first, I wasn't sure if it was a good idea. It seemed a little cruel. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Mark needed to understand how much he had hurt Lisa, and sometimes shame is the best teacher. Lisa decided that we would wait a week before putting the plan into action. Meanwhile, she kept an eye on Mark to see if he was still acting the same way. She wanted to make sure he was still texting her before confronting him. Over the next few days, Lisa and I kept a close watch. She told me that Mark was still acting the same as before, guarding his phone, staying up late with his laptop, and being distant. It was like he didn't even realize that Lisa was suspicious. At one point, Lisa even joked about creating her own fake profile to trick him and see how far it would go. But we decided against it. We didn't need to add more chaos to an already ridiculous situation. I also kept monitoring Mark's computer. It didn't seem like she was trying to scam him for money, at least not yet. It was mainly flirty messages and promises to meet up someday. The idea of Mark sitting around thinking he was in a secret online romance made me want to laugh and scream at the same time. At the end of the week, Lisa was ready to go ahead with her plan. She called Mark's closest relatives, our mom, some cousins, and even an uncle, and told them she needed their help to confront him. She didn't give many details, only saying that it was something serious and that she needed their support. Lisa and I planned exactly what she was going to say. The confrontation is scheduled for tomorrow, and I will update once everything has happened. I'll just say this. Mark is about to receive a very hard but necessary lesson. Update 2. Now I can tell you what has happened. After the confrontation with Mark, we decided to meet at Mom's house. It was a place where Mark wouldn't immediately feel too defensive, and it gave Lisa the support of the people who knew him best. Neither of us knew the full extent of what he had done. Mark thought it was just a normal family gathering. He arrived completely oblivious to what was about to happen, laughing and talking as if it were just another family get-together. When the time came, Lisa and I took control. I got everyone's attention and told them we needed to talk. Mark was confused by all of this because he didn't have any idea what was about to come. Lisa began by explaining how things had been strange for months. She described the sudden change in Mark's behavior, his secrecy, his distance. When she mentioned that she had come to me for help, Mark's expression changed. Now he looked panicked, and I think he was trying to figure out how much we knew. Lisa laid it all out, saying that Mark had been talking to someone online. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She explained that these weren't just harmless messages, but an affair, at least in Mark's mind. But what made it all worse and downright absurd was the fact that he wasn't actually talking to a model. The person on the other end of those messages was a 50-year-old man posing as someone completely different. The moment that truly sent it over the edge was when Lisa revealed a large, printed photo of the man, Frank. And it wasn't a photo that flattered him. It was one where he looked especially rough, making Mark's actions look even more foolish. The room erupted. There was laughter and looks of pure disbelief. Mark stood there frozen in place, but he was sweating as if he had just run a marathon. He tried to deny it, stuttering, but it was useless. I presented all the evidence I had gathered, from the fake profile to the true identity of the person behind it all. It was humiliating for him. You could see it in his face. He turned bright red, his voice shook, and it seemed like he wanted to disappear. The ridiculousness of the situation didn't take away from its seriousness. Mark had betrayed Lisa, shattered her trust, and ridiculed himself in the process. Mark's embarrassment quickly turned to anger. He tried to blame me, saying I had no right to get involved in his private life. But I reminded him that I only got involved because Lisa asked me to, and that his actions were the real problem here, not me. The family's reactions were mixed. Some were visibly disappointed with Mark, while others couldn't help but laugh at how ridiculous the whole situation was. Uncle James, in particular, had a hard time keeping his composure. He laughed so hard that he fell off his chair. But even with the humor, it was clear that everyone understood the seriousness of what Mark had done. Eventually, Mark couldn't take it anymore, and he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Luckily, no one was behind him. Lisa remained calm, although it was obvious that she was hurt. She told everyone that she had already made a decision. This was the end of her marriage. She wasn't just angry. She was devastated and humiliated. Lisa is a fiercely loyal person to her family, friends, and husband. For her own husband to do this was a profound betrayal. Even Uncle James, who had already recovered from his fall but still had tears in his eyes from laughing so hard, became serious. Mom admitted that Mark had to face the consequences of his stupidity. No one tried to convince Lisa to reconsider. Lisa wasted no time. Within days, she contacted a lawyer and started the divorce process. On his part, Mark has completely isolated himself. He hasn't returned any of my calls or texts, and as far as I know, he hasn't gotten in touch with Lisa either. He's obviously embarrassed and doesn't know how to confront anyone. A part of me feels bad for him, but mostly I'm frustrated. Instead of owning his mistakes, he's running away from them. He should be a man and at least apologize to Lisa. But I guess I didn't raise him well enough. The family, although supportive of Lisa, is still trying to process everything. Some can't believe Mark was such an idiot, while others focus more on the absurdity of the situation. It has even become a running joke among the cousins. Regarding Lisa, I have nothing but respect for her. She handled the situation with grace and strength, even when it would have been easier to fall apart. She's moving forward, and I have no doubt that she will come out of this stronger. She is a very strong woman. Mark, on the other hand, has a long road ahead of him. He's burned bridges, not only with Lisa, but also with the family. I think he can straighten out his course, but first, he needs to apologize and take responsibility for his actions. With the divorce process underway, I don't think there is much more to tell for now. I will update again when everything is finalized and I've had a chance to talk to Mark. Update 3. I want to tell you what has been happening regarding the story of my brother and his lover, the 50-year-old man. A few weeks after the confrontation, Mom tried to communicate with Mark. She had always had a soft spot for him because, whenever he did something stupid, she would excuse it as him being a little immature. However, this time, even she had difficulty talking to him or defending him. Mark barely responded to her messages, and when he did, it was in a curt and defensive manner. On the other hand, Lisa stayed focused. She didn't care much that Mark had disappeared. She was working with her lawyer to finalize the divorce as quickly as possible. Lisa and Mark had been married for 5 years, and although their lives were intertwined, Lisa had always maintained a certain level of independence. They have no children, which simplifies the process, and most of their assets are easy to divide. Lisa is an independent woman and does not need Mark to survive. Mark, however, has not handled the legal process well. When he was served with the divorce papers, he apparently exploded and initially refused to sign them. Despite his resistance, it didn't take long for him to give in. Lisa's lawyer was meticulous, and Mark didn't have much room to defend himself. In the following weeks, Lisa attended all the meetings, responded quickly to legal queries, and maintained her composure at all times. Mark, in contrast, missed deadlines, delayed responses, and generally hindered the process. According to Uncle James, Mark is trying to outrun embarrassment, but shame always catches up to him. A week after the divorce hearing date was set, Mark finally showed up. He came to my house unannounced, visibly upset. From the moment he walked in, it was clear he wasn't there to apologize or seek advice. Mark was furious. He accused me of betraying him, blaming me for everything that had gone wrong. He claimed that by getting involved, I had interfered in his marriage and turned Lisa against him. It was the kind of deflection of blame I expected from him, but hearing it in person was still frustrating. I let him vent for a while before interrupting him. I reminded him that this wasn't about me or Lisa. It was about his actions. I told him I wasn't going to take any responsibility. I was just helping someone he had betrayed. I told him that, if the roles were reversed and Lisa had betrayed him, I would have expected him to stand up for her too. But, of course, Lisa would never do something like that. She had been the best wife he could ever have and ever will have. Mark didn't take it well. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. It's clear that all this time hasn't helped him reflect or see things more clearly. He still thinks the world owes him something. Instead of apologizing or trying to make amends, he blames everyone else and isolates himself. It's hard to watch. Mark had always been stubborn, but this was different. He wasn't just being difficult, he was actively sabotaging his relationships with the people who cared about him. He had already lost his marriage, but he still had his family. He should be building bridges, not burning them. The day of the divorce hearing finally arrived. Lisa was calm and composed, dressed impeccably but simply. She told me she was ready to end all of it. Mark, on the other hand, arrived late, disheveled, and visibly agitated, at least from what Lisa told me. The hearing was straightforward, with no surprises or last-minute revelations. In the end, the marriage officially ended. Since then, Mark has not contacted most of the family. The only person he has spoken to is our mother, but even that can't really be called staying in touch. It's more like the kind of contact you'd have with an alien in a close encounter of the fourth kind. Bizarre, brief, and distant. Update 4. For those who want to know how Lisa and Mark are doing after the divorce, I thought it would be a good idea to provide an update. Lisa, for her part, is already moving forward. She has gotten her own place and has even adopted a dog. It's a pretty intelligent dog and has learned many tricks quickly. We all know him because Lisa is still invited to family gatherings. Even though her relationship with Mark has ended, she is still considered part of the family. Uncle James jokes that the dog is so smart that he probably wouldn't fall for an online scam. Mark, on the other hand, is still keeping his distance from the family. He has not contacted anyone, nor does it seem like he plans to. Mom seems more disappointed than angry. She has called me several times, asking if I had heard from him, but I had nothing to tell her. We know that Mark has gotten a new apartment for himself, so we know he's not struggling financially. Still, I can't help but think about what other stupidity he could get into now. Setting aside the infidelity, which, to this day, still seems funny to me because it involved a 50-year-old man and not a model like he thought, I realize that if I hadn't discovered it, things could have been much worse. If nobody had found out, Mark probably would have ended up scammed. I think that's something he still hasn't understood because somehow he still thinks all of this is our fault. But let's imagine for a second that we hadn't discovered anything, or that I hadn't told Lisa. Sooner or later, he would have been scammed, and sooner or later, Lisa would have found out. The result would have been the same, because he was dishonest and cheating. The only difference is that he would now have far more problems than what he's currently facing. I'm not saying that he should thank us, but I do feel that he hasn't understood the seriousness of the situation. Sooner or later, he will end up doing something stupid again. At least, this time, he won't hurt Lisa, because she's no longer married to him. But if Mark does something stupid, you already know that this is the place I'll use to tell you all about it. Update 5. This saga has stopped being the story of Mark and Lisa and has become the chronicle of Mark's nonsense. But if you all enjoy it, I'll keep sharing. Mark's list of nonsense in recent months has been quite extensive. However, there are only a couple of incidents that I think are worth mentioning. The first has to do with cryptocurrencies. Mark bought a couple of cryptocurrencies whose names I don't remember, probably because they were unpronounceable. As expected, they disappeared overnight. I think the first warning sign for him should have been the promise of a 1% daily return for those who bought in. As you might guess, the creators of these too-good-to-be-true schemes vanished with all the investors' money. I have Bitcoin and other well-known cryptocurrencies, so I understand the value in legitimate ones. But I don't even remember the names of the ones Mark invested in. And we're not talking about a few dollars, he spent $5,000 on them. I guess every family has an Uncle James, the one who drinks a little too much and makes colorful comments. When Uncle James found out that Mark had bought these sketchy cryptocurrencies, and after we explained what they were, he said, "I also have several of those things to sell. I make 1 or 2 every day in my bathroom." I'm not going to deny that Uncle James' jokes are sometimes a bit scatological, but he is a good person. Mark filed a report with the police, but let's be honest, the culprit is probably some teenager with a computer on the other side of the world trying to scam the unsuspecting. I can't help but wonder how many other Marks are out there. But that's nothing compared to the money he spent on a mail-order bride. Yep, Mark has fallen into the same trap again. This time, he's been sending money to a girl who supposedly lives in another country. According to him, she had a very sad story about how she needed an opportunity to emigrate. I don't know what country she claimed to be from, but I imagine it was the classic Russian model scam. She asked for money to buy plane tickets and other necessities, and Mark sent her nearly $1,000. Of course, once she got the money, she disappeared. The worst part? Mark actually thinks something terrible happened to her and wants to go to her country to find her. Luckily, he doesn't have any information about her beyond her name. If he had even one fake city name, I wouldn't put it past him to try to go after her. I can't say who's behind this scam, since I don't have access to Mark's computer. But if it's you, Frank, leave him alone. You've already ruined enough lives. We had a few good laughs at Mark's expense, but it's time for him to move on. Uncle James, of course, had another comment. He suggested that Mark should go to a bar to meet someone in person, saying, that way, he'd avoid most of these scams, since the internet hasn't exactly been kind to him. Luckily, or unfortunately, depending on how you see it, Mark hasn't fallen for any more of these scams recently. Or at least none that I've heard about. But if I find out more and people want to hear it, I'll keep bringing the updates. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced something similar, or do you know someone who has? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories.